Morning, guys. Okay, so today we're going to finish up the notes on the invasive species overharvesting that we didn't get to yesterday. So make sure you have that sheet ready, and we're going to go ahead and begin. All right, so yesterday we ended on desertification, the process of fertile land becoming a desert due to erosion, from deforestation and drought, etc. So today we're going to look at invasive species. So invasive species are any kind of animal, plant, or fungi that live in an area they are not native to, so they're brought from another area in some way. And they can cause economic, environmental, or physical harm to the ecosystem. All right, so there's, it's not just that it's something that's brought in, it's something that's brought in and also does damage. So the first species you're going to look at is the Asian silver carp. So there's a YouTube link down here at the bottom of the PDF. There's also a link to this YouTube video in the assignment. So really quick, pause my video, watch this video. Okay, so you should have watched the video about Asian silver carp. These carp were brought in to become feeder fish, that kind of thing, and they were released because of a flood. So we intentionally brought them over. They were released in the Mississippi River because of a flood, and as you can see from the map on the notes, they have since spread throughout pretty much the entire Mississippi River basin. At this point, there's silver carp that are potentially threatening the Great Lakes, and as they infiltrate different parts of the region, they are taking over the environment and taking the resources and starving out the other parts of the ecosystem. So the ecosystem as a whole becomes destroyed. The second one is the Burmese python. So the Burmese python is an invasive species in Florida. The area that these pythons are native to is very tropical, it's warm, there's a lot of water. These are all things that you see in Florida as well. So the Everglades of Florida mimic the natural environment of the Burmese python pretty well. However, in its natural habitat, Burmese pythons do have predators that, attack them, specifically like large cats. In Florida, no predators have adapted to hunt the Burmese python, and in actuality, the Burmese python is a threat to the top predator in the area, alligators. So Burmese pythons are growing to be massive in size, and the state of Florida has actually released so-called Burmese python bounty hunters, so they get paid for every dead Burmese python they bring in, because they're trying to find some way to limit the spread of this invasive species. All right, so now I'm going to have you pause me again. You're going to watch a TED Ed video on invasive species. So the TED Ed video link is also in the assignment. Okay, so after watching the TED Ed video, you should be a little bit more comfortable with what invasive species are and how they work. So you saw some more about the Burmese python. You also watched about rabbits and kudzu. Again, invasive species are non-native and they cause harm in some way to the environment, whether it's physical, economic, or environmental harm. Now, invasive species are one thing that we have done. Most invasive species arrive in an area because of humans, whether it's on accident or whether it's on purpose, like with the rabbits. Rabbits were on purpose, the mussels were on accident. Another issue is overharvesting. This occurs when we take too much from the ecosystem through hunting, fishing, or gathering, and the ecosystem cannot sustain itself. So some of the problems we see with overharvesting is that when you remove a piece of the ecosystem, which has developed over millennia, You have a less healthy ecosystem. Okay, so it's not going to be able to bounce back from trauma as easily, so like a drought or a flood. You also have biodiversity loss, again, because you're removing a piece of the ecosystem that's going to throw off the rest of the ecosystem. Destruction or extinction of a population, which would permanently damage the ecosystem. And then resource destruction. There's nothing wrong with using the resources of an ecosystem, to use the fish or use the animal or use the plant. The problem is when we overuse it to the point that we destroy the resource. So one example of that is the American bison. During the 1800s, the United States government actually had a policy of destruction for American bison as a way to prevent native tribes that used the bison from gaining enough strength to like fight back from the country invading their land and taking everything over. And as you can see from the graphic on the right, the lighter blue color is how far bison spread naturally, historically, over 60 million bison. By 1870, the dark blue, you can see there are only 5 million bison left. And then by 1889, there are less than 1,000 bison in the entire world. And many people thought the bison was actually extinct. So what actually happened was, in the early 1900s, they discovered a small herd in what is Yellowstone National Park, and we worked really hard to recover the species to the point where you can buy bison meat and bison burgers, etc. Today, but you still don't see as many bison roaming, the area the way that it should. And so the ecosystems for the entire central part of the United States, most of the United States actually, and parts of Canada, have been permanently altered. And a lot of that area is now farmland. All right, so how can you prevent overharvesting? You can create hunting seasons, make people get permits for how many fish they want to fish, or how many animals they want to hunt. You can also create sanctuary lands. These are areas where no hunting or fishing is allowed. So the animals, when they're in that area, they don't have the threat of being hunted by humans, and they could potentially recover part of their population there. And then you can also instill quotas. So this is not necessarily for the individual hunter or fisher, the quota, but for large corporations. So, fishing vessels are only allowed to catch so much of whatever type of fish, to make sure that there are enough fish or like enough crab or whatever to allow the species to recover the next year. So they're able to reproduce and grow as many new animals as were taken the previous year. So again, there's nothing wrong with using the resource. You just have to make sure you manage the resource so that way you don't destroy it and you can continue to use it in the future. So what you're going to see on the next video is an example of overharvesting, and it's specifically overfishing. So they're going to talk to you about fish populations and things like the bluefin tuna. So go ahead and pause me real quick and watch that video, which is again linked to the assignment. Okay, so you should have watched the video. We should be a little bit more knowledgeable about what overharvesting is and the damage it can cause. Again, as they made clear in the video, and as I've said a couple of times already, it's not about using the resource, it's about using the resource responsibly. When you overuse something, you threaten its ability to survive and maintain its, numbers. And when we are constantly overfishing, those species don't have a chance to regain their numbers. And so potentially in the future, that resource will not exist anymore. So again, it's about resource management, not about just complete stopping. So today we talked about overharvesting and we talked about invasive species. You should feel a lot more comfortable with both of those at this point. Make sure that you filled in the worksheet that was you began yesterday, the notes sheet. You're going to turn in the entire notes sheet today. So yesterday you took a screenshot of something. Today you're turning in the notes. So make sure you upload those to today's assignment and you are good to go, and that's all you have to do today. So I hope you guys have a good day. We've got 7 more days. We can do this, guys. We got this. All right, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.